Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Wednesday, February 7th, and this is episode 860 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Wednesday, so it's an interview show. And Julie was scheduled to be earlier in the year, but life happened. And so we have Julie Wentz, and we're going to talk about health freedom. And she has an organization called Freedom Healthcare that I think y'all are going to be really interested in. We'll dive into that shortly. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you want to get a question in, please put the word question in all caps or the first word of your question in all caps so I know to mark it and work it into the interview. That helps me a lot just because these eyes are not as good as they used to be. And, my reading glasses can only do so much. Plus, when you're running a show like this, you're paying attention to a lot of different things going on in the studio. Okay, I also want to talk about our featured event of today's show, and it's February 24th, put on by the Sequatchie School. They are doing a trapping class that starts in the classroom, and then you get some hands-on. I'm going to totally be there. I'm super excited because I don't always get to take classes because we're coordinating so many events here, but I get to take this class as a participant, and I'm really looking forward to learning a new skill because we love to learn new skills every year. And two things I wanted to do, learn trapping, and I also want to learn how to tan a rabbit hide, which will be something I probably put off until the summer or fall. We'll just see how that goes. Anyway, if you want to sign up for this class, it's $125. And I believe it's in Spencer, Tennessee, in that area, which is in like smack dab in the middle of Tennessee. If you want to sign up, email Sequatchie School, SEQUAT CHISIESCHOOL @gmail.com. I also want to thank our two sponsors of today's show. The first one is Discount Mylar Bags. Toby at Discount Mylar Bags is a fellow Tennessean. And when I started Hollow Roast Coffee, he reached out to me and said, hey, send me some of your bags. And he was able to source them in bulk for cheaper than what I was getting at that time. And since that time, I've only gotten my bags from him, but he specializes in sourcing things in bulk and then passing on those savings to you. And you're supporting a fellow entrepreneur who has built his retirement business in Mylar bags. He's got great resources at his website on the right-hand column for food storage. That's discountmylarbags.com. Our second sponsor of today's show, it's tax season. And the questions are starting to pour in about, can I write this off? How do I file that? All of those things. Why not hire somebody who can help you figure out how to get your ducks in a row for your finances, make decisions about how to structure your business, what write-offs you can take, explain how you need to document those and any risks associated with them. You can do that with Matthew Sursley from agoristtaxadvice.com. And if you just want to see what he's about, go to agoristtaxadvice.com/LFTN for Living Free in Tennessee. And you can sign up for an email list. When you do that, you get a free guide to some common tax deductions that you can take. And you get on his weekly mail. He sends out a weekly mail that's just a digestible piece of information about tracking and taking care of write-offs, saying, hey guys, I hate clerical work more than just about anything. So I've started working with Matthew for that reason, to get things really automated as much as possible and make sure I'm taking advantage of all the write-offs in the tax code. Because if you're going to do something like start a business and earn your own money, why not keep as much of that as possible? That's agoristtaxadvice.com. With that, we'll go straight into the interview. I didn't want to go too long on the intro because Julie's only got an hour today. So Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so let's start out with this. Tell us who you are and how you ended up so passionate about freedom.
Oh my goodness. Well, my name is Julie Wentz. You know what? Everything really started. I mean, I had a nice little tiny life with my dog and I in Arizona, and friends and a nice job and a nice house and a pool, just kind of cruising along like I think most people were. And then when 2020 hit, it was definitely an eye-opening time where things just didn't seem right to me. Just normal common sense things were not being followed. And that really started me on the path of going, okay, what's going on? Learning more of the information, but it shifted everything. I'd never been involved in politics nor wanted to be, was never, considered a freedom fighter, was never really into anything like that. But with what happened in 2020, my entire life shifted.
I think a lot of us have the story of the entire life shifting. I know our network exploded that year because it was, like in one sense, 2020 was really hard and bad, and it was scary to see people falling for it, really.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of eyes got opened up that had not been opened. So
Yeah.
that's like the silver lining of 2020, right?
I agree, because it's like if all of this didn't happen, we wouldn't have known what was actually going on. I know a few people that kind of had an idea of what was going on, but the majority of the people that I know through this time were awakened during this time. And what did it for me, I remember that first, it was end of February, first beginning of March. We know when everything went down was on March 11, 2020, when the state of emergency started. And I was living in Arizona. But I was watching TV, and I obviously turned off TV 3 years ago, but I was watching a show, and the news show came up, and there was this giant word across the screen, pandemic. And it was just so big. And I thought, why are they trying to scare people? Like, why is this plastered across the news screen like fear? There was just this fear that was getting dumped on people. And I'm like, something's wrong, like something's off. So it was pretty immediate that I felt like in my spirit that something was off. And then I used to rent out part of my house as an Airbnb, because I had this really pretty house and pool and stuff. And I had these two ladies come and stay with me who were from Seattle. And we would sit, they love playing golf. They came for 5 days and stayed, and we'd hang out by the pool at night and just chat. And one of the ladies worked for Boeing for 30 years. And she actually lived in Wuhan, China for 3 years. And she knew the virology lab, and she knew the wet market, and she knew a lot of what was going on there. And that was literally my first, opening of the rabbit hole of like, okay, I need to start learning really more about what's going on, because she gave me a lot of information. And then I started down that hole and never looked back. And even during that year, finding out about the patents that Gates had done with Rice University and the quantum dot tattoo, and the WH, 0202666, just, and the using your body as body positivity data, where your body's like a battery. I mean, all these things that they've been working on for years. And I just started stepping into that paradigm of like, where's the truth? What's the truth? So that was the opening of Pandora's box, stepping into that place of finding all the truth.
So why did you decide to come to Tennessee from Arizona?
Well, everything started in Arizona, and I came to Tennessee for what I thought was one thing, but I think it ended up being something different. But since I've been here, the contacts for Freedom Healthcare really have gone through the roof. There's been a lot of connections, communications, people across the country. And I really feel like there's something here that God is doing, like something is going to come out of Tennessee. There's a lot of people, I've met so many people that are getting brought here and they don't know why. God's telling them to go. I got yelled at to go. I didn't want to leave Arizona whatsoever. Love my house, love my life, love my pool, loved everything about it. And I got yelled at. God said, it's time to go for the next adventure, like yelled at me. So sell everything, up and come here. But a lot of people are being brought here for not the same reason, but for unknown reasons that God's leading them here.
Something I think about in the self-reliance arena is that the lone wolf dies in a crisis, right? And the stronger your community is at supporting each other and providing for each other, the more resilient you are. And so one of the things I love about Tennessee is that the sense of community and strong community, people developing trusting
Mhm.
relationships that have been happening here since I moved here, but it has definitely accelerated after pandemic year.
Yeah. And I noticed when I came here, I mean, I was born in Southern California, lived in Oregon for 23 years, and then Arizona for 7. I've been here just almost a year and a half, not quite. But the people here are so nice and so kind. Like it doesn't matter who you talk to, everyone is nice and kind. And it's just amazing. You don't find that in other cities and other places. There's something very sweet about Tennessee.
So hopefully we can preserve that culture.
Yeah.
People may find it insincere, and sometimes it probably is, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like
No.
I'm a proponent of fake it till you make it sometimes. And I
Well,
know, especially on mindset stuff where like I'm mad at somebody or I think they did me wrong, but I got to forgive them and move on. I, when I don't like when I make the decision to forgive, I
yeah.
don't feel it here. I just made it here. But then as I go further into the, interactions with those people that I have forgiven, the heart eventually follows. But I always have to, I have to fake it till I make it on things sometimes.
Well, and I guess I'm lucky so far. I've been blessed that I haven't run across anybody fake yet. That like the people that I've met, the church that I'm going to, the group of ladies that I'm in a Bible study and friendships with, they're real people. Like the people here are real people, and they really care. So far I haven't found a fake one yet, which is good.
That is good. Okay, so let's talk about health freedom because that's what we're supposed to talk about today. How free are we right now in your assessment?
I don't think we're free at all. I
How
personally
come?
just well, you look at once we've learned what was happening the last 3 years, and when you look at the history of how things came to be, when you go back into the late 1800s with the Rockefeller Rothschilds medical system that they started, everything has been planned for a significant period of time. Well, like I tell people, it's like we're all just petri dishes for money. There's nothing in our current medical system that either incentivizes for getting healthy or even helps people actually get healthy. So if there aren't options for you to be free from medical assistance or free from the system, I don't think that's medical freedom. It's almost like an oxymoron. Medical and freedom really don't go together anymore. They should, but they don't. You're free when you're healthy. You don't need a doctor. You can take care of yourself. You're living in a healthy environment. You're eating healthy. You have freedom when your body is healthy. When you're ill and you're constantly having to take pharma-based drugs, which literally is pharmakia, where the root word is, which is actually sorcery. When you're being fed drugs by the system that only cover an ailment, it's not fixing anything. Nothing is getting to the root cause of health issues. So doctors have been trained through the education system. They only get, I don't even think they get a full semester anymore of nutrition. They're taught how drugs deal with a certain ailment and what the interactions are. They are paid and trained as slaves to prescribe drugs for big pharma. So
I
there's
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. There's no freedom in that.
Yeah, so sometimes we'll have a delay, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
So
that's okay.
that might happen. I'm friends with a number of doctors, and some of them have just stopped operating within the system, but others are still kind of in this hybrid position where like they'll own their own practice and their coaches, but if they say certain things too loudly, they could lose their license, which is how the system's set up. But that gives me a lot of hope because I know a lot of people get into medicine because they want to help people.
Right.
And a book I just started reading is by Dr. I don't know how you say his last name, Peter Attia or Attia. I'm not sure how you say his last name. It's called Outlive. And he frames it as medicine 2.0 is what our system is right now.
Mhm.
They wait till you're sick and then they treat it. So they'll do blood work. It's going to show that you're not quite in the pre-diabetic, but you're elevated in your A1C, for example, in your 20s. His premise is the intervention that should happen right there is nutrition and exercise to keep that from happening or delay that happening. And that's medicine 3.0. That would be a preventative thing. But what 2.0 does, it says, oh, you're healthy, you're in the normal range. And our normal ranges are based on a sick population. That's a whole nother, thing. And they wait until you're diabetic or pre-diabetic to then prescribe something. And then at that point, they're like, oh, by the way, diet and exercise could also help you. But then what they tell you to eat is like that's a whole nother.
That's a whole nother. Yeah.
But I know a number of doctors who are like, no, you need to like cut out all the processed foods, cut out all the sugars, and eat a natural diet.
And that's the way it should be. But you're right. All they do is wait for you to get sick. And we live in a society where you have fast food that's crap. Every time I walk into Kroger's, I just want to throw everything that you walk into the door away, because all you see is Pringles and soda and candy, all of these processed foods that catch you on the way in that are killing people. They're just poison. So we have a food industry that does nothing but give us chemicals instead of eating, off the land or healthy or growing it yourself. Everything should be preventative. But you're right. You're not worth any money if you're healthy, though. You're not worth money.
Yeah, unless you're willing to pay your coach. I'm willing to pay a coach, but that's a whole nother, thing.
Right, but people have to make that decision. But again, it's all these years leading up to this point of being trained a certain way. So I'll go back as early as the 60s with the food pyramid, when it shifted and when low fat got brought in. And when we need fats, the fats should have stayed in there. We know that good fats are better for you. Well, they took the fats out. They inverted the pyramid. They took the fats out. And then they low fat tastes like crap. So we're going to fill everything with sugar. And everything started from that point, because they had to counteract the taste. And you can look at every single food label, and I'll say 98% have sugar listed in the ingredients. Well, sugar creates inflammation. Inflammation creates disease. Whether it's diabetes, whether it's heart issues, it doesn't even matter what it is. Inflammation in your body creates disease. So you have this vicious cycle of they're feeding crap. Kids in schools are not getting the healthy food, especially in the public schools. Families are so busy that you look at somebody's grocery carts when they leave, when they're checking out the grocery store. It makes me sad seeing a mom with their kids, a cart full of potato chips and canned soda and everything packaged that's going to get thrown in the microwave or the oven to be cooked. Nothing green, nothing fresh. So this has been going on for so long that we've just been brought into it. It's just become part of our lifestyle, and we've just been basically brainwashed into it. I remember when I was going to Catholic school for a couple years of my life before we moved to Southern California. And I remember, because we had to take our lunch every day. We never had, buy it school food. On Fridays, it was like once a month on a Friday, they had little hot dogs, hot dogs in a little foil bun and some potato chips. And we were allowed to buy that on a Friday. Oh my gosh, that was like golden. And it was just something different because every meal was homemade. Every lunch was homemade. And that was like the first foray into processed foods. But boy, that hot dog tasted good and those chips tasted good. Everything is made to have you consume, and everything is full of chemicals. Like, it's just not natural in the grocery store.
Yeah, we walked away from that when we did the homestead here, but it's taken 17 years to get to a point where we are now. That's what my podcast is about a lot. But I think about it when we talk about pantry management. Like, the first thing you need to do when you want to get free of the chemicals in food is, like, you don't have to go start a homestead like I did and have a huge garden and put all that. Just buy whole foods and learn how to cook with them.
Yeah.
And if you can't do it all at once, do it with half your food and then do, more and more. But when you get control of the food, you start feeling so much better when you get rid of the refined sugars and all the preservatives and the prepackaged stuff. It's amazing how you feel better.
And my opening day was my husband passed away in 2000, and I'll never forget, I was walking down an aisle with chips on one side. It was a Safeway, chips on one side, cookies on the other, everything packaged. I'm walking down this aisle and I just froze. And the thought that went through my head was, what would a caveman do if he was walking in here right now? I just had this random thought, like, what would a caveman do looking for food? And I just stopped at that moment going, okay, all this food is crap. So I started with my daughters. Poor things were guinea pigs. They were young at that point. But I started first because I knew that organic foods were more expensive and all the things that were out there, which wasn't a lot back then. But I started with fruits and veggies. And I started slow, and we did all fruits and veggies first. There was an immediate difference. Like, we would do taste testing, excuse me, from, organic lettuces or tomatoes, and just the difference. We started there, huge difference. Then we started venturing out into crazy things, like back then, the hot dogs, which were absolutely disgusting.
Yes, they were.
They were so gross. And some of the other stuff, sorry, my throat's dry.
It's okay. If you need to mute, just like wave at me, and I'm really good at talking while people get their voice back. Guys, Julie also got the plague from one of her employees or somebody she works with. And so
I have a leftover.
Y'all have all heard me when I had pneumonia. Sometimes I'm like, I got to go cough for 10 minutes. I'll be back. So,
but then the other thing I noticed too, like, we would get treats once in a while. Loved Oreo cookies, but I could sit there, pardon me.
Yeah. Or here's a story, guys, along this lines. I used to love Doritos. And my aha moment for food nutrition was traveling in Europe for 2 weeks. I came back 15 pounds lighter with no bloaty gut. And my first meal in the US resulted in water retention and bloaty gut. And that's when I realized, like, even our good food, our whole foods, are a problem.
It's bad.
So I went all whole foods for a while, and I hadn't had Doritos or anything like that for a year. And I was like, well, I'm going to have a treat. I'm going to let myself have a little bag of Doritos. And I know that if you're going to do that, you have to buy the little bag, because you could buy the big bag or the little bag. Doesn't matter. It's going to be all gone once you open that bag.
Yeah.
So that's how I am. And I bit into these Doritos, and it was such a strong flavor. They were terrible.
Yeah.
They were like too salty, too sour, it was overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And that was just from having cut out all of the refined foods. Going back, you realize we have trained our palates away from what whole food, like finding whole foods as flavorful.
Yeah. And it was interesting because, used to like, Oreo cookies, could sit there and they were addictive. Like, you literally could almost eat that whole package. Well, I found Newman's Own, which were little Oreo cookies that just like regular Oreos. Bought those and ate a couple of those and stopped, because you're satiated from just those 2 cookies. I'm like, why is there such a difference? And it was all the organic ingredients and less chemicals. And it was just navigating through going from the crap to finding something better. And what I realized was, by the time I weighed the difference in all of the foods that we shifted to organic, I was raising my own beef in Oregon. So everything that we did, I probably did not spend more than 25% more in groceries, because we were eating less, because there weren't chemicals making it addictive. And that was during that time going, all right, we have got to move away from this. But you're right, sometimes, because I eat as clean as possible, but sometimes you just want a snack. You just want something that you haven't had for a long time. I actually did that the other day. And I bit into it and I just went, this is disgusting. I can taste the chemicals. I remember that I used to get, when I would fly out of Oregon, I would always stop by Starbucks and get a Starbucks coffee before I'm heading down, the ramp. Just had this little deal. I remember probably be like 10, 12 years ago now, it was a pumpkin spice latte during November, got one, took a sip of it, and I thought, this is disgusting. What is this? And I opened up the cup, and what wasn't coffee or was in there, this was 12 years ago, the slime around the inside of the cup and the chemicals that were separating inside the cup of Starbucks coffee. And I just thought, okay, I'm never having another one of these. We're just taking this off the list. But you can taste the difference once you've eaten whole and eaten clean and you start eating the processed. It's a game changer. You can taste it. You can feel it. Like you said, your gut will, explode. I don't do great with bread, but I started learning how to make sourdough bread, and I can eat that and have no issues. Like homemade sourdough bread, I'm like, I can actually eat bread, because any other bread is just, any normal bread that's out there. It makes me sad that we can't wake up more people, or we try to have parents help their kids understand we're being fed poison. If they just looked at the labels, your body was never made for chemicals. God made us perfect. We have a perfect immune system. We're supposed to eat everything in nature that he gave us. There's nothing in the Bible that talked about Doritos or Oreos. It's just healthy food.
Okay, sarcastic Generation X me wants to make a joke about fish and Oreos being made, but we're not going to do that. But that's where my head went, for those of you who know how I am. But okay, so before we go further, tell us, what is Freedom Healthcare, so we can kind of relate to, what we're talking about here. What is Freedom Healthcare, and like, what's your mission with that?
So, and then I'll tell you what it is, and then we'll go back to how it came into being, because
exactly.
that was back in Arizona. So Freedom Healthcare is, we are creating a new healthcare system that's not only completely outside the existing system, but that's taking us back to the original design of health, which is creation and creator focused. So it's spirit, mind, body, and nature based focused. Everything that's been done since the garden, since Satan has had his way on our earth, has been turned upside down. We're turning it right side up. People have health. They have the right to have perfect health, and they were born with perfect health. What does that look like to get back to that place? Like we talked about earlier, we're missing that place of getting people back to foundational health. And what does that foundational health look like? And number one, it's not only a relationship with the creator. When people actually understand where healing comes from, where actual healing comes from, when they understand that, and then it runs down from that relationship, that spiritual relationship, to your mind and soul, to your body, then you understand how healing can actually happen from the way we were created to be. So we're literally turning things right side up and stepping out of what's going on, because what's been done to us is against everything we were given when we were created.
And what does that look like as day to day?
Well, it has a journey that it's on. I'll go back to how it started, and then kind of how the phases came to being, because all of that kind of works together. When I was still in Arizona, when all these things were going on, I started kind of helping a couple freedom fighting groups, because we were all trying to figure out how we were going to stop the state of emergency. And a friend of mine and I started Arizona Stands Up. So we, like some of the other stand-up groups across the country, there was New Mexico Stands Up, there was Ohio Stands Up with Tom Renz and my friend Jason was over there. There's Gary here, Tennessee Stands. They were across the country. So we were one of the stand-up groups. We were Arizona, and our goal was to help people with what was going on that was illegal and against our rights, not only our constitutional rights, but our personal rights. And we were doing a lot of work for people, and our main goal was to raise funds to take down the state of emergency, find an attorney to take down the state of emergency, because we knew there was no state of emergency. Governor Ducey had no right to claim the state of emergency when there was not a true emergency. And this is true across all the states. So we started trying to find an attorney, and this journey who I was never, politically involved or cared about history or cared about politics or any of this kind of stuff, made me realize what has been going on in just about every system, especially our government, as we were dealing with these things in Arizona, and even just trying to find one attorney that would take a case that had to do with our constitutional rights. We only found one. We were starting to raise the funds to take them on for the retainer. We got close, and I called one of the lead attorney. I said, hey, I have a couple questions. And he's like, oh, sorry, Governor Ducey hired us for something else, so we're not going to be able to take your case. It'd be a conflict of interest. And I had some choice words and hung up. And then I realized, I thought, okay, if they're willing, and they were the most conservative, best shot we had in Arizona, if he was willing to be paid off by Ducey, then we wouldn't have wanted him anyway. They wouldn't have been on our side if he was willing to go help Ducey. So we started over again. Some of the mandates started coming down. So we started a lot of freedom fighting work. We had community town halls where we brought in medical professionals that were actually helping people, whether it was naturopaths or nurses in the hospital. We had town halls. We started a grassroots newspaper. We were doing a lot of different things. But when it came down that they started mandating the quote vaccine on the medical professionals, the front line, our border patrol, everybody, I'm like, I know what they're doing. Like, through this entire thing, God has given me visions and wisdom and information on everything that was coming and what's still coming. I get things all the time. So this whole process is like, okay, I know what they're doing. They're gonna take out the front line. They want to take out the front line. So we stepped up and started helping them. We created a 3-part document process to go with their religious exemption so that they wouldn't have to take the shot. And we had the 3 big systems. So we had Banner, Honor, and Dignity hospitals in Arizona. And we had employees coming out of the woodwork. So we created a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. There was an affidavit, documents that had to be signed by the CEO of the hospitals and the head of HR, which they would never sign, and then a cease and desist at the end. So we put together this process, and it literally 99.9% of the employees that used our process with their religious exemption held their job and didn't have to take the shot. And we had nurses calling from California and other states saying, hey, we hear what you're doing. Can you help us? So we just put it out there to help everybody that we could hold their ground and keep their bodily autonomy and hold their medical freedom. And then my friend and I were sitting there talking, and she goes, we need to start a new healthcare system. It was just out of the blue. And I was just like, oh, no. That's way too big of a thought. I don't have a medical background. I wouldn't even know where to start. Like, I have no idea. That's impossible. Look at what's already existing. We can't do that. And she just goes, how do you know that God doesn't have you right here, right now for something like this? And it was interesting because I said, all right, I'm just gonna pray about it. So I prayed about it for a couple of weeks, and I thought, okay, Lord, I have a business background. I'm an out-of-the-box thinker. I will be the hands and feet to put this together, but you have to bring the people. I certainly can't do this. You have to bring the people. And that's been over this last 2 years, putting these pieces together from what the first word of like what it would look like. The first word I heard, I mean, not having a medical background, I heard the word, he tells me DPC. I'm like, I don't know what DPC is. Like, what is DPC? Direct Primary Care Clinic. You know, these words, and then I hear micro hospital. Well, what's a micro hospital? I have no idea. So we talk about a learning curve that was just through the roof, trying to understand the medical system and what's going on and how we could step out, create not something similar, something different, but within sort of the same type of structure that's in existence. So it went from just the idea of a DPC clinic, a direct provider clinic, to phase one being telehealth, phase two being the clinics with an urgent care fusion, phase three being micro hospitals, and phase four being education centers. So literally what's in existence now, but completely outside and back into the private where we have every right to be as free people, but creating this in a way that we're turning it, like I said, right side up, where it has a spirit, mind, body focus and a nature-based focus. It's not out there whatsoever. There's some great alternative doctors that are out there that are silos and on their own trying to navigate, but they've been slammed and cut down by the medical system. If they didn't join the big groups like Optum or Dignity and the big systems, you know, they were ostracized or put out. This has been planned for so long, just like what they did with the education system. Carnegie and Rockefeller and Rothschild have been behind this drive for control for decades, over 100 years. So it became these four phases, and they're not necessarily in order, but looking at what it needs to look like. So we had this great roundtable discussion one day in Arizona about a year and a half ago. I had cardiologists, couple doctors, naturopath, I had an ER physician. And me trying to wrap my head around this, I asked my ER physician, I said, you know, what do you make when somebody comes in the ER and you have to do something, you know, how much money do you make? Well, you know, we make it about, you know, 20, 30%, but we have to pay our billing and our costs. And I said, where'd the other 70% go? And she said, well, it goes up to the hospital and the insurance companies. And then I asked the cardiologist, I said, if you had a procedure for maybe $1,100, how much do you make? And he goes, oh, maybe 190 bucks. And when I heard both of those, I got really excited because all of the waste is going up to the insurance companies and the systems themselves, which I call the beast system. It's going up to that system, which means we are going to be able to make healthcare so affordable and in a way that we can help people actually get back to a place of foundational health, because we have to start helping people understand where they need to go back to outside of just assuming you need a drug because your doctor told you, or you need a shot because your doctor told you. And now we look at, I didn't know any better. I think when my daughters got their shots, they got maybe 22. There's 90 on the schedule now for babies. They're giving babies things the first hours and the first day that they never needed. So we look at the rates of autism. We look at all of the health issues that have been coming forth. It's now eyes wide open. If you can't see what's been happening the last few years, or even look beyond that to what's got us to this place, you have to go, okay, do I want to just stay in it because it's easy and I'll take my drugs or whatever? Or do I really want to step out, protect my family, protect my friends, look at what it looks like to be healthy? Because we're going to need that more than ever for even more with what's coming. People have to take their health back.
Have you heard of the Free Market Medical Association?
Someone told me about it briefly. I haven't looked all the way into it.
Yeah, I used to work in public policy. So this is something about me you won't know because that's not homesteading, Nicole. It was nerd, Nicole. And we worked on what would the solution for healthcare be from a policy standpoint. And a lot of the work I did was right after Obamacare got passed. And there were a lot of doctors who and facilities who realized we just charge cash. We provide better service to our, or if we just accept cash only and no insurance, we provide better service to our customers or patients. We have better outcomes,
Mhm.
and it costs a lot less. So like the example we had was a knee replacement cash is $20,000 at that time. If you went to the nonprofit hospital, it was $120,000. If it failed at the nonprofit, you paid another $120,000 for that knee. If it failed at their cash clinic, they had agreed to redo it for free. And they rarely had to redo one.
Right.
So like their doctors were happier, the patients had better outcomes. It cost, 1/5 about of what it
Absolutely.
actually costs, and it was just making the simple change of not having to have a billing center to bill insurance. Like you have to have a whole fleet of people,
Yeah.
not having, and you go through this process where you send it in and they reject it and you send it, like it's this whole game that gets played. The negotiated rates from the insurance company are higher than if you pay cash. Many times your negotiated bulk rate. Yeah.
Right.
So you don't want to run things through insurance. Yeah, I don't know where they are since the pandemic on some of the freedom issues that are important to me. Is if I go to a hospital and I have a medical mandate saying these are the interventions I want and these I absolutely don't want. Sometimes those things get ignored when you are not conscious. They're
Yeah.
like, whatever, I'm just
Right.
gonna pretend I didn't see that.
Yeah.
And that bothers me. And I have friends who've delivered babies and had things come up where they were hurt a lot and things were done that they were not okay with as part of that
Yeah.
process. And it makes you not want to ever go to the hospital, obviously. Like, I'm really glad I didn't end up on a lung machine during the pandemic because that would have killed me.
Exactly. And that was, I mean, so many things you just said are so important because same thing when I got shedded on October 2022, and I'd never been so sick in my life. I texted my daughter saying, "Hey, I don't feel good." And she goes, "Oh, take Echinacea. You've never been sick. Like 22, 9 years, you've never been sick." I text her a week later going, "You know what? I'm really sick." And she goes, "I'm going to fly out there and take you to the hospital." I said, "No, you're not, because they're going to kill me." I knew what was going on in the hospitals during this time. I said, "No, I've got stuff. I'll be fine." Actually, it was 6 weeks. It was horrible. But so many people I know would not go into the hospital because we know what was happening in there. Also, the medical kidnapping and some of the medical murder that was going on. So people don't trust the hospitals. The other big piece, which has also come into part of this and why our private hospitals are going to be so important, where everything is in the private. We also, part of Freedom Healthcare is also pure blood ministry. So we know now that people that have been, quote, vaccinated, what it has done to their blood or what it still may do to their blood, and not even know at this point how or what, because we're only 3 years in, can be cleaned out. What's it going to look like if somebody needs a transfusion? Say a mama is pregnant and she's going to need a transfusion. Well, we know the Red Cross, it says it on their website, they don't discriminate between any type of blood. So we've created a private database, and there's 4 other groups around the world that we partner with for people to find someone nearby should they need a blood transfusion for an upcoming surgery or whatever. But the hospitals now, you used to be able to go into a hospital and either have a directed donation or autologous donation, whether it's your own or bring in somebody, and they're not allowing that anymore either. So that's a huge thing. So our hospitals that have to get up and going are for multiple reasons, not only for people to feel safe going in the hospital, like if they go under, they don't know if somebody's going to give them a shot, or bringing in their own blood donor or having one nearby that has a better chance of having cleaner blood should they need a blood transfusion. But the technology and the healing that's out there that is not being allowed in the existing medical system, because if you're well, you're not worth money. If you're healed, you're not worth money. So there's so much out there that we want to be able to bring into our private hospitals. I have a partner group on the East Coast that is literally regrowing organs. We're not going to need organ transplants anymore, and we're not going to need anti-rejection drugs. There's so much out there that God has gifted people for healing that needs to get to the public, because they have a right to be healthy. They have that choice. They can stay in the system if they want. If they want to choose a different way, we're not out there to help the entire world. We're just trying to help where it needs to be, because this baby is God's directive. This was not my choice. This was, on the path to do this. When I was going through the Bible, trying to find the verse that was going to be at the head of Freedom Healthcare, I was going back and forth, and I finally landed. I stayed on Exodus 15:26. And Exodus, because we are exiting the system, and 15:26 is, I am the Lord that heals you. And it's the first instance in the Bible that it talks about God heals. And God heals not only from his nature, but also in his nature. So we're going back to where we have every right to be, which is creation-based for healing.
So where are you at now with Freedom Healthcare? Like, how does it look to interact with y'all?
So we continually add things for our members. So people go on to freedom-healthcare.us. That's our website. They go on there and they can become a member. It's a monthly donation. Right now it's $33. There's a ton of stuff on there right now for members to access. We have affiliate partners for schools and doctors that are teaching more alternative actions. We have a library of information. We have some products. There's Wellness Wednesday videos. We have access to a foundational risk assessment and blood test. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there. We already have a couple supportive clinics. One is in Arizona and one is in Ohio. So what it looks like, what makes Freedom Healthcare different is the way we're structured. So I looked at this over the last couple years, trying to decide, how do we protect our members? How do we protect our providers? And how do we maintain our rights, our constitutional rights, our creators' rights of being free people and being healthy? So we've structured it as a 508c1a, which is a nonprofit ministry. We're a ministerial membership association. We also married it with a private membership. So we have the best of both, not only under the 508, which is actually listed under US Code 26. We're an actual nonprofit, but there's an exception that normal nonprofits don't have. That's also what was hidden from us, with a private membership association. So our members are part of the family. Our supportive clinics are a member of Freedom Healthcare, and they have their own members. Their members also become part of Freedom Healthcare, because there's a lot of things that we offer that the clinics out there that they're solo doing it on their own will not be able to access. You mentioned something a little bit ago, and then I'll come back to this just because I'm watching you scan it. When you're in the hospital, so I had a team of nurses and specialists create an advocacy packet, a concierge advocacy packet. And in that packet, it has everything. If you were to end up in a hospital and you needed to advocate for yourself, we have I think it's 15 documents in our advocacy toolkit for somebody to fill out. So when you go into the hospital, that doctor is going to do exactly what you want him to do. That's it, end of story. So we put that in there. There's a whole bunch in there. There's more pieces as we're going. This year, we will launch telehealth. There's conversations happening right now with what that's going to look like. The micro hospitals obviously will just take a little time. And this is the big thing, because we are a nonprofit, everything we do runs on donations, obviously. So that's our biggest thing, is the donation piece. But the supportive clinics are autonomous. They run the clinic how they want. They charge their membership how they want. But we will bring to the table things as Freedom Healthcare, as an umbrella. We will bring things to the table that they couldn't access. So something like an adverse incident protection plan would have formerly been called maybe catastrophic insurance. What I hear mostly from people is, are you going to take insurance? Well, no, we're not. This will be private pay all the way because we know the savings that can be done. But people are afraid of the what if. What if I get in a car wreck? What if I have a heart attack? People are afraid of the what if, and we've been trained in the current system to pay the insurance rates, which 90% of the people never use. I have friends who pay $600 a month each for insurance, and they have a $6,000 deductible, and they never use it because they go to a naturopath. Well, what if they could take that money that they're putting into the system and put it into like a health savings account or savings account for the what if later? And we also have something that protects them if something happened, the what if. The other thing that's getting launched, which will be going out to our members within the next couple of weeks, the announcement will come out. And people can go on the website and join, get on the email list, is we're looking at every single thing that we need to address to have this system up and flow to step out of the existing system. One of those things has to do with the financial aspect. So I've spent the last 6 months working with a group, and we're going to be creating an internal precious metals, asset protection, financial piece inside of our membership by joining forces with another type of membership. So when we get to that point, not only will it protect members' assets, they'll be able to use it like a debit card. We're going to create a GSA, which I'm calling, it's a gold savings account, but it's a GSA. They will have that money for the what if put aside. They can put their money away. And as this moves forward, we will be able to create a financial system inside the system for patients and providers, or members and providers, to pay each other for services based on safer assets. So we're looking at every single thing that we would need to do to protect members, protect providers, and create something that's sustainable, that's going to be helping people.
Well, that sounds like a lot of progress has been made. I wonder what you're doing in April. Are you booked?
In April? What's in April?
Self-Reliance Festival is in April. It's a weekend event, and we have a semi-health focus in some of the speakings. But what always comes up here, because we're solutions for the mission of Self-Reliance Festival is take the fear out and start doing something to better your life, learning things, developing relationships so that you're more resilient. And what always comes up is, but what if I get sick?
Yeah.
And then I'm always like, how many doctors are out there? And hands go up. How many nurses are out there? Would you see people directly if you needed to see in a crisis? And they're like, yeah. So there's a lot of, it's funny that you say you feel called to this. I would say for the last year, every time I'm at an event and I'm a facilitator, I'm facilitating and the room is uncomfortable and they're scared. And I'm like, let's get the fear out. The topic has always been getting access to healthcare, like actual care, not insurance, which those two things have been conflated in our language.
And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Every time I'm in a room like that, all the pieces of a solution are sitting in the room. And I'm like, y'all just need to go talk to each other and figure it out. Because
that's why we're looking for, so as we do this, we're looking for clinics that want to shift and become supportive clinics. Now, what this looks like for the protection of everyone coming into the umbrella, clinics that want to shift out of the system, become their own 508c1as under the umbrella. Mm-hmm. And this piece will be protected moving forward. I had a gentleman, my head's stuck in, medical or healthcare because this is where God has me. But I had a gentleman reach out about 1.5 years ago, and he's like, Julie, I've had like 6 people tell me I have to call you and I have to learn about this 508 PMA. So he's telling me what they're doing. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you could become a PMA. He goes, no. He goes, we're a ministry. Let me tell you what we do. And he told me, and that was a light bulb moment for me, because I thought, okay, with what he told me they did, I'm like, this isn't just for healthcare. This is for private home education schools. This can be for co-ops. This can be for farms. This can be for social clubs. This can be for restaurants. This can be for any business that has a ministry aspect. And we're stepping out of the government's touch 100%, and we're stepping into our rights of free people. So everything, as we move forward, and when you look under US Code 26508C1A, it talks about an association of ministries, an auxiliary of churches. We are a group moving forward, and the strength will be the more that come together to do this. So as we look and talk to, as doctors get hold of us, they start hearing about this, that when they want to step out of the system and they have the same mission and mindset, they understand where we're going and what the goal is, they can create a supportive clinic as a 508, come under the umbrella and go into the private with membership with their own patients, but still will be able to provide those benefits that they wouldn't be able to get. And we're adding more and more. The education piece is coming. I have a couple doctors that are going to be training new in technology that people haven't had access to. Everything is about healing. Everything is about total health. So those doctors that are out there, nurses, we can create mobile ministries. There's a whole bunch of opportunity to create mobile ministries. The sky's the limit for people. If the mission and mindset is there and your goal is to help people, because that's why we're here. We love people and we're here to help people. And we got to help people get healthy. So that's where it's heading. There's so many moving parts.
Okay, so we're coming up on your hard stop here, Julie. So why don't you remind us how we get involved, what we can do, and then we'll sign off.
Biggest thing, go to our website. So it's freedom-healthcare.us. Sign up for the email list, become a member. It's a monthly donation of $33. You're access to a ton of stuff, and that's continuing to go. There's ways that people can volunteer and help. If you know doctors that have, or physicians, providers, alternative, whatever, that have the same mission and mindset and know it's time to leave the system and they really want to do something better for humanity, have them reach out. There's ways to get started. We're donation based. That's the biggest thing. Everything moves forward on what we do with donations. People want to put money towards one of the micro hospitals. They can do that if they want to put money towards clinics. The other thing we'd like to do, and this is one of the next steps, is getting clinics into like-minded churches, because churches are not using all their space during the week. And they usually have extra ground space, whether it's extra parking spaces or whatever. If churches have the ability to do a different kind of outreach to the community that's actually healing, and reach out to the community by having a clinic on their church grounds or integrated with what they're doing, that's huge. So when we look at this, we have no desire to be big. We don't want to be like any of these big systems. We just want to be everywhere, which means clinics in each town that people in town and city that people have access to if they choose that they want to actually find a way back to their foundational health. But freedom-healthcare.us.
Okay, Julie, well, thanks so much for making time to be on. I know you'll probably hear from some of our people, and I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you, Nicole, so much.
I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, guys, I put Julie into the green room for this because I know she has a hard stop at 3 and I wanted to do the show wrap up. I hope you got a lot out of that discussion. We have not done a lot of policy discussions in the last year or so, and I promised you we would start talking about freedom projects again. And something I like about what Julie is doing is that it's a bottom-up approach and it's hyper-local. And I think that supporting projects like this that are hyper-local and connecting people are something we can do to help, as well as maybe getting involved. Like, go over there and sign up. It's a website, freedom-healthcare.us. Really easy to find, not terribly expensive to subscribe and become a member. And we got to put our money where our mouth is. If we claim we want to find alternatives to the system now, if we want to participate in them, when somebody has a great idea, support them. That's what I got to say about that. If you like the show, want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollowroast.com. Two, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.